I'm Amber, and today we're going to be doing a book review on The Fates Divide by Veronica Roth. Guys, it has been a hot minute since I have posted a video. It just didn't happen, and now it's happening. So we're here. We're going to do this. I just finished this book. It took me much longer than I anticipated, but I'm really happy that I finished it. It wasn't as good as the first one, in my opinion. I loved the first one. And I read that one a while ago, back when it first came out, but I just remember really being sucked into the universe and everything that was going on and the characters and everything. And this one, even though we started off right off the bat from where we left off in the other book, it just felt like there was too much going on at times. I mean, it was a good book. I did enjoy it. It had just its moments where I was thoroughly confused and I wasn't feeling it. There were too many things that they introduced and then too many things that they didn't. There were just too many things that they introduced, and it created too many things that needed to be resolved, and not everything was resolved, and I felt like there were things that were sort of resolved but we could have had more information with, and it just left too many plot holes, and we're just gonna have to live with it. Okay. I just felt there were too many things thrown at us. This book is a pretty thick book. I think it's actually bigger than the first one. And with the space that was utilized, I think that there could have been ways that things were portrayed differently, or certain information that was taken out, and certain things that could have used more explanation added in, and just different things I feel could have been used within the space given. Otherwise, like I mentioned before, I think it was a great book. It's just that is kind of my initial thought that I'm left with, because the ending was so jam-packed. There were things happening left and right. I didn't have time to process everything because there was just so much happening. And then in the scenes when we're going in front of councils and I don't exactly there were certain terms where I was I'm not sure this person is the head of here, and then this is there were just too many things going on where I was just who exactly is this person? What exactly do they do? What is their purpose? How does this government work? Because in the first book I felt like I had a clear understanding of what each person's purpose were. There were the oracles, who were kind of they guided the overall people who ran the government, and the government had their council, and then it just felt very cohesive in that this was that, and then we had certain families who had certain gifts and certain futures based on what the oracle said, and it just things made sense. And in this one, it was just we were introduced to so many different worlds, so many different planets, and I was grateful for that. I was grateful to see so many different aspects of what this book world entailed. Obviously, the whole thing is that this book started off in one planet, and now we're going off into space, and there's different places to visit and everything, and I knew it was going to get bigger in that because we left off last time when they were in space. But I just felt once we got there to so and so planet, and we kind of started looking at their government and their structure of how they ran things. I understood that they were different, but it was complicated. I think more specification as to this person does this and that, or maybe I feel like too much of that was thrown at us at times, but when it was needed, I was left very confused because it wasn't there. Um, and then I felt like certain information could have been weeded out or explained differently because obviously, yes, we're in that world, we're seeing it from that character's point of view. And there was multiple points of view. There was like 4 points of view. There was Cece's, Sierra's, Akos's, and Eija. Yeah, I can't pronounce that. And so we're seeing it through their eyes, and so they already know kind of like the structure, or they've already been explained how it works, but we are not familiar as readers of what the terms are, how certain things go. So it can get pretty confusing, especially because each planet, each world has their own like structural hierarchy of how things go. And so at the end, when it talked about like this like group of planets favorite this and this favorite that, and there was like a war that was gonna happen, and like it was gonna be split down the middle. Like I understood that, but I didn't understood what like led to it, because I understood that obviously with it like there's Thuv, and then Hessa is in Thuv, and like it's like a city or a town. I'm not quite sure. Um, and then we have where the Novex live, which is kind of like the Beverly Hills of that area. Like the nicer kind of like they have much more resources. Like that was a bad analogy, but like they, it's like so much is going on there compared to like the rest of everywhere else, and they're getting just so much more resources, and they have like their one ruler, and then they have their like council and stuff and everything, and like they try to take control over Thuv and everything. But then there's also like, what's the name of it, that one exile planet where all like the exiles go and everything, or like the people that don't belong or don't want to be in Thuv anymore, and that planet with like that government, because like the way they explained it, it was just like all cohesively one planet, and then this other planet was where everyone else went. Um, and then there was other planets, but this one planet, like it was more like the refugees and everything. Like it just gets really confusing. Like I was I was like, okay, so these people favor that, these people want this, and like these people want the oracles gone, and I'm just like, but why, what, how, okay, you don't like this, but what are we doing with it? Like I understood like why they didn't want the oracles anymore, but it's like I didn't understand the whole plan, like the whole central plan, and which planet aligned with who and why per se. Like I felt like I kind of like you would you would gleam over that, because like it just was so much information that like the vital information were just like, what was that again? So yeah, thoughts all over the place on that, but it was just really complicated. I did appreciate it, I just would have wished that it was kind of explained more plainly, at least for readers, so we can digest it more. um, I really liked Sierra's character development in this. I really appreciated, like, I love good character development. I really appreciated how much she grew, how much we learned about her. There was different memories that came about, and then there were things that were brought up that I don't remember from the first book, and I would have liked to remember. And then there's things that were brought up just kind of out of the blue. But for me, it worked with her because I was like, okay, up until the end. The end, it got complicated when like her powers, or her gift rather, was kind of like coincidentally the thing that was gonna stop everything. And it's just like, how could you? I guess like that's what the oracles were for, and they could have prophesized that she was the one to save everyone, but like she kind of figured that out in the end. Nobody else told her about it. She was just like, oh, okay, I'm gonna do this. And if it didn't work, like it didn't work, and she would have died, and everyone would have died. But those are other feelings. Other than that, I really liked how she kind of just grew into herself. she became more motivated and strong. And in the beginning, she was very much dependent on Akos. And, they were learning things together, they were figuring out their relationship together. She was just kind of enjoying the idea of being free and no longer having to be this weapon, no longer having to be in so much pain all the time with her gift, just living her life and just figuring things out for herself. And then stuff started happening, life hit her, and it was just like, you know what? Like, I need to step up my game. Like, I need to figure out what I want, who I am. I don't need this man to feel whole, even though I love him. But he's got his own things going on, and he is like not giving me what I need in life. So it was like props to her, like she, even at the end, like, she tells him after everything that happened, like, I forgive you. It's not unforgivable what you did, but like she acknowledges that she needs her time to heal, to process what is going on, to figure out like how exactly they're going to move forward with their relationship and her life now after everything has been said and done, because he like literally like, even though he was doing what he was like supposed to do, he basically stabbed her in the back. And I think certain things could have happened differently when he was like with his, spoiler, but he was like with his dad, or like he was gonna kill last la, la I can't pronounce some of these names for the life of me, but like he was just like, there was a moment where he could have helped her, he could have even like saved her, and he was just standing there with his mouth open. I'm just like, boy, like, you get on it, like, like, yes, you've gotten this far, you did terrible things, you did what you had to do, but like now, like, you can run away with it. Like, what is the point in staying? I mean, there's gotta be some other way to kill this dude. Like, like, if you stay, I'm pretty sure that your plan is not gonna, like, even though you've been like so sure that you've got everything under control and everything's gonna work itself out, and everyone keeps telling you it's gonna work itself out, I feel like it's not gonna work itself out. Like, you are leading them to this temple, and like, you may know certain things, but then you trap yourself in a room with him, and you didn't like double check what was going to be going on, and what you wanted to happen didn't happen. And like, then you just basically like tricked him and killed him because he didn't know that your gift still worked. And it's like, couldn't you have done that like somewhere else by doing something else? Like, like, did it have to be this way, and people to be like, for people to be killed? Like, I don't understand why we had to go this far. And I feel like there's certain things that could have been prevented. I know that the one friend who was the guard, he, his death obviously could not have been prevented. Understand that. But there were so many things where he's like, I blame myself now because all these people died. I'm like, yeah, well, you could have done things differently, but that's just me. And so for her to forgive him, like, obviously she's done some terrible things herself, so she's like, I understand. But for her to forgive him after all that, and for basically leaving her, like, before all this happened, like, he literally, like, left. My light is flickering. He literally left on a jet thing, whatever, spaceship, and like didn't even tell her. And okay, like, you had a plan, but you couldn't like have trusted her enough to like fill her in, or like to sit down and have a conversation and be like, this is happening. Like, it was this whole, like, we reached a point where it was like he felt like he had to be with her because of his like destiny and his fate and everything. It's like, okay, you clearly are sorting through things, I understand, but did you have to leave? Did you have to just get up and walk out? Like, he did a whole Edward Cullen word, goodbye, I'm gone. And I'm just like, no, like, Edward at least said bye. Like, he didn't even say bye. He just hopped on a spaceship and he went and left her hanging. And before that, like, it was just like they had this moment where it was like they were good and everything, and she asked him, she's like, do you want me? And he was just like, well, I obviously like have to be with you, and it was just like wrong answer. And then he gets up and he flies away in a spaceship, and I'm just like, bro, you can't just leave a girl like that. I don't understand. But that's that. There were a lot of characters that I loved in this book. I loved Cece and Isai. Anyway, I loved how their relationship was kind of like blossoming, and they were figuring things out, and she was figuring out like how she felt about her, and like, but I just felt like even though I loved reading those chapters so much, there was also like the tension of that Cece's gift was like her current gift was basically controlling like Issei, and like she was influencing her decisions and everything. Like obviously she wasn't like saying do this, do that. Eventually her powers develop and she can do that, and she was like, "Oh, I could do that all along, or at least I that was my powers." And I'm just like, "How did you get here? Like, how did you know you can?" I don't understand. Same thing with Sirius. It's like, how did you know? Okay, all right, this could have gone horribly wrong, but okay. And it was just like there was that going on in the back of my mind where I'm just like, can't you just like can't there be another way? Like, yes, you know, you can use his power to make her feel comfortable and help her with decision making because she's making rash and horrible decisions. She's making horrible decisions, and I'm just like, girl, like, I get you're mad, but you don't hate, like, you were in a spaceship with these people at the beginning, like, you don't hate them. Why are you acting that like you hate them and suddenly you're all high and mighty? And I was just like, you are one of them. Suddenly you are being all empress, and it's just like, I am angry at the world, you know? And I get it, her sister died, but it's like, why? Like, certain situations, it was just, it went too far. And this is one of the problems I had with this book. It was just like, things were good, and I like where this is going. And then we took a strange turn, and it was just like, there were like, things going on underneath surface level that were just like, why? What? So you would read the chapter and it would just be like, I enjoy this, but there's parts of this I do not enjoy. So it was like 50-50. And so in the end, she was like, she's with her, but she also was like, if I tell her what I did and how I influenced her, and like she could have just talked to her and we could have gotten to this like solution, but like if I tell her, you know, we would not be together anymore. And it's like, well, yeah, duh. Like, obviously. I mean, you could talk to her and you could tell her so that way she can understand, like, because there were certain decisions that you need to help her with. But like, it made it feel sad and like not authentic. It was just like, so do these characters belong together? Can they belong together? Like, I don't know. It left you with doubts, and it was just like I feel like you just could have like talked to her in certain instances and didn't have to like change her mind and influence her like that. Um, the bad guy, I forget his name, that was on the ship with them. He did excellent. He was just nasty in all the right ways, and then he literally like stabbed Cece in the back, and it was just like all these things. She was like, Issei was like making all these like political like decisions and everything, and then Cece was kind of like trying to like make sure she made the right decisions, and then this guy was just kind of putting his 2 cents into things and trying to manipulate both of them. And it just was like, I was living for it. He just was so snarky and so like I think just in the situation that was going on and with everything else going on, like with the main characters and where they were at, we needed some conflict where the sister was, and where these decisions were taking place with Issei and everything, and that way we could see how certain things developed. And there needed to be something there that caused trouble, and sort of like behind the scenes this was going on, and I felt like he was the perfect character for that. And I just loved how everything played out with that, and he he lost in the end, and like good riddance. So it's just one of those classic like villains that you're just like, you did good, you did good with what you were intended to do. I'm trying to think. The oracles, the mom and the brother, I think we could have done something different with that. Like, one person would give the prophecy for this thing, and then the mom would give the prophecy for this thing, and like it just was like back and forth, and then sometimes they would both see whatever it was, and it just, there was a lot of plot holes with that. I felt like having I'm gonna say Elijah. Now I'm saying it differently. Okay. I think just having him would have been good enough. Don't think we needed the mom, because obviously she just brought trouble and it was kind of annoying. And then she, like, her powers were not as strong as her son's, and it just was like we don't really need you here. Like, you just kind of are this negative Nancy that I could do without. But then in the end, she ends, like, again, spoiler, but she ends up being the two main characters, the two love interests, were actually switched at birth. That was something that, like, was excellent. I was thoroughly invested in that, but it was something very abrupt that was thrown at us. But I liked it. It just, I didn't see it coming. So Sierra's mom is actually Akos's mom, but then they, in the end, she's like, my mom that I grew up with was my real mom, and the guy that we killed is my real dad. But then she also wants a relationship with this mother, and like she views her as a potential mother figure. So it's like, it gets kind of weird, because I'm like, it's technically your boyfriend's mom, but then not, and really weird things that just was like, I'm confused. So, and then it was hard to read through certain parts, because then she was like, my brother, and her brother by birth is Akos's brother in the beginning. But then he also shares sort of like a body with like the brother that she grew up with. So it's like, my brother, and it's just like, which one are we talking about? Which way are we talking about it here? So that's where it got kind of confusing. But I was just like, okay. So we needed Sifa, the mom, for that alternate reveal, and it was just like, okay, all right. And she was still annoying through that, because like she was just like, well, I did it, okay. And it was just like, we didn't get really too much more into that. It was interesting, I enjoyed it, but I would have liked to have had more of a flashback, more of like that, maybe like a chapter from her point of view there, to see the exchange of the babies. Like, it just felt like it just needed more. And the mom, and we're back, sorry, my computer. The mom, I think, was Sierra's not biological mother. She, in the first book, was portrayed as a good person, and then in the second book it was more like she wasn't, but then she kind of was, and I just was like, I don't know, I feel like we're kind of like making this more confusing now. I feel like we're contradicting certain things. So all in all, like, the new characters that were introduced and the new concepts that were introduced, like the new characters, I enjoyed. The new characters were amazing, and like they added so much. They helped characters grow. I love the new bonds that Sierra ended up forming with new characters and everything. Sometimes there were too many characters, but like it all made sense in the end. But the new concepts were just too much at times. And then like I like how the book ended, but I don't like Akos's decisions in the end. The last two chapters, like the 10 years later or whatever, and then the epilogue, I liked those. I liked that we ended off with those because then it didn't make me hate the ending, because Akos's decisions in the chapter or the chapter before that, it just, I was like, no, no. And I mean, I liked when Sierra came in at the end and was like, you know what, we can be friends right now. We're gonna be okay. We'll figure this out later. But before all that, it just was like, yeah, you made some bad mistakes, and there's consequences for that. And now he can't go home. There's this letter that he tells Cece, you know, don't influence your girlfriend anymore. Um, and I don't know how that goes because she wasn't going to tell her. And so I wish that we could have seen like something in the end with that. But then when we go to Elijah's chapter at the end in the epilogue, he kind of sees like flashbacks or like moments of the future, and like apparently they get married. And then Akos and Sierra like end up staying together, which I think was kind of like the author's way of like tying everything in like a nice little bow. But I was like still wishing that I could have seen how Cece and Ise's like relationship, like they figured things out, because I still was left with a lot of like doubts and of the inconsistencies that were going on with that. And so yeah, those are my thoughts on this book. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry about the noise in the background. My dad is constructing something over there. But yeah, that's basically it. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you guys all real soon. Bye!